Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. You are now logged on to Voices of East New York, and I am your host, Nikki Lucas. Today, we are going to welcome none other than your state senator, Senator Roxanne Persaud, for the 19th Senatorial District. And let's welcome her. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on the show today. How are you this morning?
Well, it's a great day. I'm sitting here and the birds are chirping outside of my window. So that's a good thing. And it's bright and sunny. Later today, I'll be going out on a birthday caravan for someone in the community here.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Not only is she celebrating a birthday, but they want to also celebrate because she had a tough time recovering from COVID-19. So we're going to do a caravan just to celebrate her passing by her house. So we will be doing that later today.
That's
There are a number of people who've gone through this, and so we want to let them know we're in this fight together.
that's fantastic. Since you started with that, how would someone access something like that if other people wanted to do it throughout the community? Is that possible?
That's up to the individual family. The families are organize it. You see across the country, families are organizing birthday and graduation and everything caravans these days because you have to be socially distant. So people are doing that. And so because I know this family also, so they called me and asked me to participate in that. But anyone could do it. You just, stage your time and have everyone line up and they're there and the caravan moves off and you pass the house and you have your balloons and your signs and you blow your horn and you play some music and the person is at their window or at their door, and it's a good feeling. It's a feel good thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. So, Senator, let's jump right into it. There's a lot happening. We're in the middle of a pandemic. The state senate, like other levels of government, are extremely busy, as well as yourself, not only working for legislation and helping with a lot that's going on with families. I see you also in the community. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening in the Senate and what you're working on currently?
Well, in the Senate, contrary to what you may think, we are working. We may not be in Albany, but we are doing remote conferencing and all of that. Tomorrow, for example, we have a remote hearing on disparities and what it's shown, what COVID-19 has shown us, and that's going to be broadcast on the Senate. It's a joint session between the Senate and the Assembly where we have organizations coming in to testify, and us legislators are going to be there also asking them questions and having our conversation. That's going to be broadcast on the Senate and the Assembly pages. So anyone who wants to hear what's going on about the disparities in communities, minority communities, they should do that. It begins at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. As far as what we're doing, we're trying to work as subcommittees and working groups in the Senate. I can speak on the Senate, looking at things such as how do we assist New Yorkers with rent payments, mortgage payments. The conversations on, taxes are due, property taxes are due, water rates bills are due. Those are the kinds of things that we're working on. There is the conversation as to, when is New York going to reopen? As you know, there are 7 pieces of a puzzle that each region of New York has to meet before the governor can say you are able to open. And in phases, New York City has not met that part of the metric as yet. So New York City is not ready to be open. I think as of today, we've hit 4 of the 7 points. So we're moving in the right direction. As of Memorial Day weekend, which is next weekend, across the state, many things are going to be open. People can go to the beaches, even though it's going to be in a limited capacity. New York City has not decided on whether the beaches of New York City are going to be open. We are pushing for that to happen because we want to make sure people are going out and they can do these things in a safe environment. We're going around the community, food insecurity. It's real. It's real now more than ever. And we see it. People who, and people are still afraid, and shameful. It's a shameful thing for them to say, "I need some food." But we're going around the community, and we're giving out the food. As anyone knows, whatever I have that I'm able to have for my office, we try to share it across the district. My district is not, it's a vast district. So whatever we have, if I have 10 cents, it's 10 cents to share across Senate District 19. I'm never the person who says it's only going to go for one area. That's never been. And, people see that. We've been helping a lot of seniors with food. We've been, as you've seen, I have 1990 developments. We've had food distributed across those developments and some of the other non-public housing complexes that we've had, and some other areas. Like, for example, last week, we did a food distribution that was geared towards a school district, and, the school district put it out, and it was really successful. So those are, in addition to that, my office, even though the office is physically closed, the staff is open. We're all available. The staff is available. The telephone number is 718-649-7653. For anyone who wishes to call, who has an issue, they call that number, and the staff will return their call and work with their issue. In addition to calling, anyone wants to send their issue in, they can do that by sending it to Senator Persaud at gmail.com. Senator Persaud at gmail.com. So those are some of the ways people can reach out.
Senator, about a couple of things, points that you actually hit on. You mentioned about rent and mortgage. What are the possibilities of rent and mortgage cancellation throughout the city? How realistic is that discussion in terms of it happening?
Well, it's when people say rent and mortgage cancellation, there's no such thing. Someone has to pay it. You may not physically be paying it, but someone has to pay it. And that's a conversation that's being had. The federal government, we're dependent on the federal government sending some funds to the state so we can administer that fund and see how much of someone's rent we can pay. When we say cancel rent, remember, if you're living in someone's home, that person still has a mortgage to pay. That person still has property taxes to pay. All of those things, whatever the homeowner or the owner of the development you have, they still have bills to pay. And so we have to be able to balance that. We're currently looking at what can we do, and we're working on those plans. And I am part of a working group in the Senate where we're discussing that, and we're going to take it to the larger Senate body and have conversations before the information is released as to what we're doing. As many people may not know, before anything can become law, the Assembly has to agree on it, the Senate has to agree on it, and then Governor Cuomo has to sign off on it, and then it goes forward. So it's not just a case that you can say it today, we're going to pay everybody's rent, or we're going to pay part of your mortgage. We can say that. We can all say that, but how realistic it is. We have to make sure we're working, all three groups are working together to come to consensus as to what, where, how, and why.
Well, it's exciting to hear that it's actually on the table. And you hit it right on the nose in terms of how this is going to be paid for, and consideration for those who are paying mortgages, homeowners, business as well, property taxes. So those are things that have to be considered when this discussion is had. But I'm excited to hear that it's actually at least a discussion on the table. You also mentioned some points in terms of opening the city, taking it off of pause. What are some of the things that the governor is looking at in considering opening up the city? Where do we have to reach in order to make that happen?
Well, you have to have, it's in terms of the hospitalization has to be done, where you have to make sure that your emergency rooms are capable and your ICUs are capable of holding a certain number of people. You have to have been steadily decreasing. Your COVID-19 cases had to have been steadily decreasing, and there's a number of those things that he has. There's a metric on the governor's webpage, and we have it on our page also, where it tells you what those things are and how many counties counties are reaching it, and where is New York City on that? And you can follow that daily because it's updated in real time. So there's a meeting this morning, so I have not looked at it this morning because it was not updated as yet. But New York City was expected to reach 4 out of the 7 points by sometime today, or by today, or sometime this week actually, so that we can move forward. As you know, the governor gives the okay to move forward, but counties and municipalities and all of that, they have to be prepared to implement their reopening plans, and so they still have work to do before they actually open. But we're hoping that in most cases, many things in New York City can reopen, some can start reopening by the Memorial Day holiday weekend, because as we know, Memorial Day, everybody wants to be outside. People want to go on the beach. Friday I was coming along the Belt Parkway and parts of the district, Plum Beach area and all of that. You see so many people out there already. But people weren't being socially distanced. They weren't wearing masks, so we want to make sure that we do not have a reoccurrence of what has happened over the past 2 months.
Okay, I did see that. In fact, I got some calls yesterday. The boardwalk over in Coney Island was heavily populated
Yes,
as well. And you're exactly right. There wasn't a lot of social distancing, and about half of the folks were wearing masks. So
Yep.
I know it's a major concern. I'm interested in knowing how the city is going to address that, or how the state is actually going to address some of those concerns. With that being said, it
Well,
looks like it may be.
before you continue, we sent a letter to the governor and to the commissioner and all of that, who handles the waterways, because it's not all one agency, and asking them to work with us on a plan as to how could we safely reopen it, because we do not want people going out there and becoming sick, and then we have to shut everything down again. That's not an ideal thing. We know what is happening to the economy across the country because of everything being shut down. So we want to make sure that we're working to make sure the plans that we have in place are plans that will work, and not rushing and say let's open, and then the day after we open we have to close again. That's not our intention.
And what are the preparations in terms of post-COVID to prepare schools and small businesses, things of that nature, especially specifically with the educational piece? One of the concerns that's had in terms of we discussed this before. People still haven't received tablets. Some folks, it's not at 100%. Some people have concerns regarding service for the tablets, which are supposed to come with service at this point. And in addition to that, post-COVID, one of the concerns that I had was, what's the grading system looking like now? But moreover, when these young people return to school in the fall, what are the expectations for them to be prepared for the next grade, for the classes? If we've already gone through this particular cycle, just passing everyone, which is understandable, and what else are you to do? But then when are they going to be prepared for the next math class? Are they going to be prepared for the next science class? What kind of consideration is going to be given for that? And if they're not able to cope with that, if they're not prepared for that next class, are they going to be left back? And what are parents going to have to deal with at that point?
Well, it's great that you asked that question, because tomorrow, Monday, we are having that conversation with the Department of Education. We're having the forum online, beginning at 5:30. From 5:30 to 7 p.m. A Facebook Live conversation, and people are sending in their questions. So we encourage people to join us tomorrow at my Senator Persaud Facebook page to ask those questions and have those questions answered. In terms of what I can say at this point, we're working on those things. We've sent the conversation, particularly about students who are aging out. you're aging out and the school year hasn't ended, you have not completed. And so you will not, people are saying if they're aged out, they're not being able to come back to school, they're going to be given some kind of certificate and not be able to have a regent's diploma, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're asking that those students be allowed to come back for the next school year so that they can have continue the formal classroom training, classroom, and then graduate in the way that they were expected to graduate. They should not be penalized because we had closed the school system. In terms of whether the students are prepared for the next when school reopens, I commend the teachers, because the teachers, I think, in my estimation, they're doing a great job. They're trying their best. It's something that they have never had to do before, and they have all stepped up. They have all stepped up. I've been in conferences with the teachers, different districts. I have 5 of them, and the teachers are really, really ensuring that they are doing their best by their students. It shows us in times of crisis what we can do. We hear the conversations about, oh, the students are not doing this in the school, in the classroom, and they're not doing this. But now we're seeing what really happens in the classroom, because parents are seeing, oh my goodness, you mean this is what the teachers have got to go through every day and keep my child every day? I saw one parent send and say, I have a person sends every single day, could you reopen school so they can go back? Like, okay,
A lot of
now
people
you can understand what teachers are going through. So, but tomorrow we're going to have that conversation, and we encourage everyone to participate and send your questions in. There's a link there to send in pre-questions. We're going to do those questions first, because the board of the Department of Education is going to be talking about what they have done, what they will do, and what will post-COVID education look like. And in terms of the tablets, they are supposed to have distributed 300,000 tablets across the school system. As of Friday, when they sent us the update, there were 285,000 tablets distributed. So they still have a way to go. Parents are still encouraged, if you've not received your tablets, to reach out, and they're working on that. We hope that by this upcoming week, all of those tablets will be distributed. So again, tomorrow, anyone wants to come in and ask those questions, they can feel free. I encourage them to come in and ask the questions. And you know what? You hold everyone accountable. That's all it is about.
I'm glad that you mentioned teachers, and I also have a question here from Janet Huger, who is actually the principal at PS 677. She says, "What can we do as a community to support school reopening initiatives?"
We have to we first see what is it that the plan is. And then once we know what the plan is, and I'm hoping that they'll have a plan soon, so we can sit down and see what is it that we need to do in individual schools. No 2 school buildings are the same, for the most part. And so we have to look around and see what is it that we need to do, and how do we support the principals and the administrators within that school to assist, to make sure the children and the staff and administrators are safe when they return. So it's a conversation we intend to have once we know what the plan is. I don't think I should not be saying, we'll do this, we'll do that, until I know what the actual plan is. We should not, I don't want to second guess what the Department of Education, the mayor, and all of them, what they're going to do. But we've been sending, and in the Senate, Senator John Liu, who was responsible in New York City education, has been working with that, and he makes sure we're asking those questions. And Senator Shelley Mayer is responsible for statewide education. So we're looking at, everyone is having that conversation, because we know going forward, it's not going to be business as usual. There are some things that will have to change, and some may be temporary, but some may be permanent changes.
I see Regina responded also to a point that you made, that teachers definitely should be recognized like health care providers,
Mm-hmm.
and get incentives as well. And then we, like you said, we've seen that spell that parents have to be subjected to this stuff, and it's really difficult. On top of them having their own families
Right, exactly.
with sicknesses as well,
Mhm.
it's important to recognize that teachers are doing great jobs out there. They have a lot of work, we're dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4 children. They're dealing with a classroom
Our
of
classroom,
five and hundreds of children.
30 and what? Yes.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So that's important to recognize as well. So one of the things, Rosa Rodriguez says she loves you, Senator.
Rosa, I know. Yes.
Um,
Thank you.
some of the other things in terms of post COVID,
Mhm.
addressing issues like evictions, what is that going to look like, especially now that you're in a discussion about rent and mortgage and things of that.
That's all part of the discussion. Someone said to us, she lives on Long Island, and she said she works for a collections company, and they also do other things. And the reopening, the company has said to her, "Oh, you're essential worker. You have to come back to work." And she's like, "But why? Why is it that collection and the processors are essential, but it's not?" But there's still the moratorium on evictions, and we're looking to see that committee that I'm on. That's part of the conversation also. What do we do once the governor's moratorium is up? How much longer? What do we give to across the state? Remember, our discussion pertains to the entire state, New York City being the largest component of that discussion. So we on Tuesday we have our Senate conference, and I'm not sure which day the full committee will be briefed on the discussions we've had, and then we have to have the conversation with the assembly. But all of that is taken into consideration. I don't think we've left any stone unturned. Whether it's we've had homeowners, renters, people who were mortgaged, people, seniors who have reverse mortgages, but they have high taxpayer payments, but there's no income at this time. There's the Michelamas, there's everything, the co-ops, the condos, so it's all parts of the conversation we have. Because looking at rent, if you say rent, it's not just one thing.
Right.
It's you have to look at everything, because someone not paying rent, how does it impact someone paying their mortgage? Someone not paying rent, how does it impact someone not paying their light bill, their water bill for the building, and those kinds of things. And so that's everything is part of that discussion. And that discussion has been heated at times, but we're fighting it through. We're fighting it through because remember, we're balancing the needs of the entire state.
Right. And I'm sure that includes foreclosures and stuff like that as well,
Oh
correct?
yeah. Yes,
Okay.
yes, all
Okay.
of that. And how do we assist? We've sent a letter to the federal government asking them again for money to assist homeowners, who are pre-foreclosure and all of these things. The intent is to make sure that people remain in their homes, whether you're a renter, whether you're a homeowner. The intent is that you remain in your home, and that's what we have to do. But trying to do that, we are reliant on receiving funds from the federal government. And the longer they take to give us the funds, the longer it will take for us to be able to do the things that we're trying to do. But we intend to succeed in what we're doing.
So, a question, Senator, just if you can confirm, unemployment, has that been extended to the this additional funds that they were giving? Has that been extended? Can you give us some details on the unemployment?
Right. It's been extended, I think, additional 13 weeks. And so people have been, if they've been receiving unemployment, they will be eligible for it. Oh, one thing I must tell everybody, because people, as the state is going back to work, people are saying, in some cases, some people with the supplement that the federal government has given, some people receive a few $100 more than their regular paycheck would have been. And so they're saying, well, can I just stay on unemployment instead of going back to work? The answer is no. If your company calls you back, you have to go back to work. You cannot say, well, I'm getting more money from unemployment. I can't go. I'm not going back to work. Then you'll just lose your unemployment and you lose your job. So you have to go back. The Department of Labor, we had a meeting with the commissioner on Friday to discuss all of those things, and they've updated the page. And this coming week, they're going to be giving us additional information that we can share with our constituents, because, as many people know, in probably in like 5 weeks, I think it was, or 6 weeks, the Department of Labor received about 2 million unemployment claims. something that they don't really receive in a year. And so they struggled with that. The website, there were issues with the website. Agencies came in, organizations came in to assist them in creating a system that will work. And so they're now trying to clean up all of the backlog that they've had. In addition to that, the constituents are sending us, all of us senators, their issues saying, I filed since March and I haven't got a response, or I filed, I was told this something was missing, I've submitted it. And so we have a portal where we submit their claims, their information for the Department of Labor to review it and to get back to them. And they've been getting back pretty quickly. Again, it's a lot of people. The Department of Labor has hired over 200 additional staff. They've also called in, I think, 3,000 other state workers to help them out. So it's in the next week, they're going to be showing our staffs the things that they can walk the constituents through so that the process will be easier for people. So it's a huge undertaking, but they're trying to make sure that everyone receives their money. And, when you receive your money, your back money, you will receive that also. So there were people who were concerned that, am I only going to get money from today because it was certified today? No, they will go back to the date and make sure that you receive it. In terms of the federal pandemic unemployment, it's April 5th. So if you were out of work from March, you cannot be receiving that backdated to March because the federal government only authorized it in April 5th, I think, or 6th. And so it's from that date you can receive it. So if you received it, please, you can't call us and say, well, I didn't get money for March. Well, you couldn't get money because there was no money allocated by the federal government and it was only authorized in April.
Okay, fantastic. And just to confirm, folks can call your office, which we have it up on the screen. They need assistance with navigating through that unemployment process.
Right. And please, when you're calling the office, you must give us all the pertinent information, or when you're emailing, most importantly, your name, your telephone number. So if we have to call you back, there are a number of people who've called us and they were like, okay, who was this person? They haven't left a name. They haven't left a number. They just say, I haven't received my unemployment insurance, or I'm having a housing issue. And it's like, okay. And then we have to wait for them to call us back. And, so it takes a longer time if we have to do that.
So recognizing a couple of people, the big Miss Lucas says that you're doing an amazing job.
Hello, Mrs. Lucas.
And once again, Janet Huger just thanked you for being supportive of and offering a lot of instructional resources. Andretta Mitchell says thank you to you as well for information. I want to be able to shout out people and deal with the questions as they come along, which is great. So, Senator, just want to take it back a little bit, coming off of the COVID piece just a little bit. Can you talk to us about what areas do you cover within your senatorial district?
Well, I have Brownsville, Ocean Hill, East New York, including Starrett, Canarsie, Basin, Bergen Beach, Georgetown, Mill Island, Futurama, a number of all the smaller areas, and then all the way through to Sheepshead Bay. So it's not just a small area. My colleagues like to laugh at me at the way my district is, but it's a vast district, and I have staff that's assigned to each segment of the district, all of the community boards, the precincts. I love to rattle off the number of precincts I cover because people go, really? I have the 61st, the 63rd, 69. 7375, PSA 1, PSA 2, Transit 30. I go through the whole thing, telling people, the community boards, the community school boards, and all of that, and I have staff assigned to every one of that. In addition to all of my NYCHA developments, there's a staff assigned. So each NYCHA president knows who the liaison in my office is. All the other developments, whether it's NYCHA or non-NYCHA, and the same with civic organizations and block associations, they have a person in the office who's assigned to them. So they don't have to just randomly call and say, oh my, this is it. They call that person, and that person is in touch with them.
So, Senator, I want to ask a couple of questions, and the reason why I led to the areas that you're covering, so people can understand how vast the area is.
Yes.
What does the Senate receive funding for different organizations or any type of discretionary funds? Um, can you talk about that a little bit?
The state and federal government, there are no discretionary funds to allocate. The city council receives money to allocate, and the city council receives money from the state to do things in communities. They walk around and they put the big checks and say, "Oh, look what I've done." But we are sending money to the city council also. In terms of funding, each organization that requires is looking for funding from the state. There's the grants gateway that they have to register for, and every organization that comes to my office or comes, we tell them that's the first thing. Please register your organization. I've had organizations who were there in Albany up to February. We've asked them to do those things and they haven't done it. I think they think that, oh, she doesn't want us to get money. But if you don't register, then if we put through in the budgeted request, we're asking for funding for X organization and you're not registered, and the attorney general and the comptroller's office and all that, when they see it, they're like, oh, your paperwork is not up to date. They don't give us back that money and say, give it to another organization. They just take the money back. The government just takes the money back. And we keep telling them this. So you have to have been pre-cleared with that, through that, so that they know when they go, they'll see, okay, you're char 55, you've registered everything, you've done it in the box, everything is there, your organization has followed all their paperwork, you're good. So we don't have to wait.
Where are they going for this gateway? Like what?
Grants Gateway is on the Senate page. It just says Grants Gateway.
Grants Gateway. And
yes.
So they go on there.
And that's on my page. Sorry?
So they go on that site, they register their organization, and then what? What's the next
When
step?
they're looking for funding, they send us their funding request and we review it, and then we put it all together with all the other funding requests that we receive from across the district, and we submit that through budget processing time.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, because we know we've talked about this in the past. So folks are saying, like, Senator Persaud doesn't give to this part of East New York. The 60th is left for dead. I'm dealing with the elephant in the room, and I want to give you an opportunity to fairly address those things. Is it the case that you're giving more money to the 59th than you're giving it to the 60th, or to Canarsie than you're giving to East New York?
I think anyone who's asking that question is being totally unfair, first of all, and that they do not follow what we put out. If you're following our weekly e-newsletter, or you go on our website, you will see in East New York, across, as again I said, across the district, I make sure whatever funding I can receive, I request for that. East New York, the number, school district 19, for example, we do so much with school district 19 for the schools across East New York. And in addition to working with the ninth school district 90, we work with individual schools. There's a number of schools in East New York that I've gotten funding for to do a various number of things. So people could just check that. In addition to that, East New York Diagnostics, we've gotten funding for them for equipment, for various things. Excuse me. The senior centers, a number of senior centers. People may say, oh, well, you didn't give it to the senior center. Senior centers are run by organizations. The organizations can show you, we've given them funding for, and it's outlined, and they can go on and check this also for the senior centers. I go to senior centers and I'll tell them, I'm like, I gave I allocated funding for X, for your organization to do XYZ for your senior center. So those are the things that we've done. NYCHA development, I've done funding for NYCHA. As you know, for the past few years prior, there was an issue with NYCHA and the federal monitor. All funds that were allocated to NYCHA were frozen until the federal monitor, and then NYCHA had to work a plan out. They're finally, I met with the monitor, and we have the NYCHA development presidents that I cover. We have weekly meetings, and we discuss what those issues are. And so now NYCHA is working forward to move that money. Anyone who knows getting money from the state, the number of channels you have to go through before the money actually gets to the point of where it should be, it takes a while. So you can check, it's an open record of the number of things I've funded in East New York, particularly with the schools. I work with the schools nonstop. There's a misconception at every school in East New York I cover. I do not cover all of the schools in East New York, but I do work with them. They'll call me and invite me to do stuff with them, and I'll go and I'll remind them, I'm like, this is not my part of East New York. For example, Jefferson is mine. Across the street is not mine. So where Pal is not me. So, and people think, oh, it's East New York, it's yours, but it's not. But anyone who wants to check it to see what we've done given to East New York, they're free to do so.
Tell me where they can check that, Senator. Where can they go to check?
No, I was going to say that they can go. It's open source on the government's website, the Department of Budgets. If someone wants to know, did I fund a particular place? Just send the information into the office, and we will check it, and we will tell them whether they can ask the agency, the organization themselves, what we do. Again, not every organization that comes for funding will receive funding. It's like an envy thing. Not every organization that goes to the city council or goes to the assembly will receive funding. I try to work with the assembly members within my district for the most part, anybody who's willing to work. So we say, okay, can we partner together on XYZ? Because if you're putting money in the budget, there's a limited amount. And the project for a school, for example, may cost $500,000. The Senate is only saying, well, I'm going to give you one, right? And then we'll ask the assembly, can you get some also? And then ask them, could you ask the city council to fund? So that's how we work. It's no one standing alone. You have to work in partnership. And if people are not willing to work in partnership, we're not going to have anything done.
I'm glad you made that point. When applying for funding, what are you looking at when you select folks that will receive it?
Are they registered or they're in the district? That's what it is. So are they registered and are they in the district? And we make every single request that comes to us. It goes in, we put the list together, we submit, and then we see. And then if the Senate says, when they send it and say, okay, you can submit 10 requests, because they'll tell you, you can submit 10 requests. We'll look at it and say, okay, this school has been submitting a request for the past 3 years for X project. Last year we funded this school. This year we'll select this school. This organization has been doing this. Or some organizations, an umbrella organization receives funding, and then they give it to, and then they work with the smaller organizations in the communities. And so we'll look at that, and so to make sure that they continue to receive funding, so that they can also assist the smaller organizations that are under them. Not every organization is an entity of their own. Some of them are partnering with other groups. But we look at every single request that someone sends in.
Now we see a lot of like food pantries, adult food programs, things coming. Mm-hmm. How can somebody apply for if they want to be a vendor with one of these programs? Is that something that's run by the state, the city?
That's something run by the city.
Okay,
it's run by the city. And on it's a good thing, because there are organizations always looking to give money to community organizations to do things. For example, the Robin Hood Fund. People can go on their page and look to see how to apply for grants. They've been given grants forever. And then they're working. Last week, I knew they did some organization within the district in East New York also, giving them funding for food distribution. The food bank does it also. Campaign for Hunger, we've been working with them, doing the food distributions across. So people, you can look at Met Council and all these places. You can look at asking them for assistance. But first, contact the city to find out, how can you receive funding to do a pantry. But the food bank is who will mostly give you your food.
Good morning to Adrian Blanford. Kimberly Sanders. I saw Simone on here earlier. I'm just reading off as we go along.
That's okay.
So, Senator, also just wanting to address another elephant in the room. Make sure that we separate fact from fiction. Right? That's very important. There was some issues, a discussion around you not voting for a recreational marijuana bill. Um, so I want you to kind of talk about that. Was there ever a bill? Where was it, and what is the process that those things go through before they actually become legislation, where it gets to you, for you to represent a vote for any particular piece of legislation or proposed legislation?
Okay. So first, there were several bills pertaining to all aspects of marijuana, whether it's expanding medicinal marijuana or whether it was allowing recreational marijuana, whether it's expungement of marijuana records. There are a number of those things. There are some of them that I supported, yes. There was never a bill that was brought to the floor, that left committee and brought to the floor for a vote. So just to put that out there. So there was never a vote for me to vote, and that I said that I voted against. So anyone who wants to check that, it's public record. You can go on the Senate webpage and click on legislation and just do the search marijuana and see the voting history on the marijuana legislation. There was the conversation last year about when the governor said he was going to have it done last year, and then he said again this year he was going to have it part of the budget. It was never done. Up to the 11th hour, there was the conversation about having that done, and it was not done. Last year, I had a number of advocates, and the people who do it, they could tell you how many times I spoke with them, and I asked questions. And I think when you're doing things, you have to be responsible. You have to ask the question. If you're not willing to ask the question and the person's not willing to give you an answer, well, then we're not going to get anywhere. And so people, when I asked questions, for example, when they said we're going to legalize marijuana and people will be allowed to grow 4 plants in their homes, and there's going to be verification of the 4 plants. And my question was, how will you verify that someone only has 4 plants? Right? And they couldn't answer that. And they said, so how are you going to enforce if you verify that someone is only growing 4 plants and it's to the specification that you've said? And someone said to me, well, maybe we'll ask NYPD to do the enforcement. And my answer was, I thought you didn't want NYPD. That's my exact answer. I said, I thought this was that you did not want NYPD in any conversation about marijuana. So how are you telling me now that you're going to ask NYPD to do the enforcement when you've asked us to take NYPD out of that equation? So those were the kind of the questions I asked. People who came there, like, we're going to get back to you with answers. Many of them never got back to me with answers. And those are the questions I asked. Last year, one morning I was we're in Albany, and my colleague walks in. He goes, oh my God, you're on every news, on every radio station this morning. They're talking about you, that you don't want to vote for marijuana. And I said, yeah, my brother calls me. He's like, I'm on the train, and this Rasta guy says, oh, he's telling him, who's this Senator Persaud? So my name was everywhere. One day I was in Albany and I'm doing stuff, and they had a demonstration in front of my office, the office on East 96th Street, because they're saying, oh, she's a black woman who doesn't want to help black people. That was the exact thing. The black woman who doesn't want to help black people. There's no such thing. The last time I checked, I'm a black person who better help black people. Gotta help. My intention is to help everyone in my district. And so not only were they demonstrating in front of the office, so it was on Twitter, it was on Facebook, they're putting it, and then they had people just constantly calling the office. Right? That's not how we do things. We have the conversations. We cannot always agree on everything. If I have a friend who agrees with me on everything, that's not a friend. Because no one will agree with me on everything, and none of us will agree on everything. My parents don't agree with me on everything, and I don't agree with my parents on everything. But that doesn't mean that what either of us are wrong. It means that we have to be willing to listen to the other side. And so the marijuana conversation is a conversation. There are several bills. There are lots of things around marijuana. The governor has promised that he will get it done. When it comes up, we will see. But as of right now, there was no marijuana bill that came out of committee, whether in the Assembly or the Senate, for us to vote for. And there are many people who are walking around. I was an easy target for many people, because they said, they didn't realize I was one of the people who wrote to the prior police commissioner to address the arrest for marijuana and gave him all the stats and met with them. And we're having the continued conversation about marijuana arrests and tickets and all of that across the district. We gave him stats. My staff worked on it to make sure we got those stats broken down and for them to see. I've had these conversations in East New York. I had, this year we haven't had it because of COVID has hit. But I have these conversations where I go around and says conversations with Senator Persaud, and those were the conversations that we've had. So anyone saying that I'm not talking about it or I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, they have not been willing to come and have the conversation. But marijuana, the discussion continues. I think every day in Albany, there's a conversation about marijuana.
Well, two key points that I think are very important to that discussion is oversight and enforcement.
Mhm.
We've seen over and over again when we put out bills or legislation in this way without a real candid look
Look.
at the enforcement of this piece, and you're talking about NYPD, we're always at the end of the stick when it comes to that. Case in point, this whole directive that was given to enforce the wearing of the mask in our community is being preyed upon with this situation. So I think it's great that those considerations are had, and I felt like it was really important to make sure that we had the discussion to really again separate fact from fiction and really understand the process of things. And then once folks go through that process and they don't get the results that they're looking for after they've done everything that they should have, then that's a point of discussion from there. That's why it was important for me to talk about that, as well as the funding situation as well. Now, I heard you mention something in regards to funding for like East New York Diagnostic. Going through this whole, what is hospitalization or healthcare actually going to look like post COVID?
That's the question everyone is asking. And as you know, in Brooklyn, there's the one Brooklyn Health that we were looking at prior to COVID, this pandemic hitting, and we saw what happened. Particularly, the closest hospital to us is Brookdale. And we saw what happened there and the needs of Brookdale. And so it's an evaluation of how do we do healthcare in the urban setting? What do we do? For a number of years, it has been about scaling back on the size of the hospitals and the number of beds, and now we've seen that something like this can happen, and we do not have the capacity. So that's the conversation that the health chairperson in both the Assembly and the Senate are having, and there is going to be the hearings on that also, so that we can make sure that going forward this will never happen. Our communities were hit, and they were hit hard, because we were, our medical system was already subpar in the community, and so when this helped, it just exacerbated the issue, and it says, oh my goodness, what do we do? And now everybody has to now be willing to come to the table and says, okay, just before when we were doing the budget, was talking about cutting funds for healthcare because of the budget. There's the budget, the Medicaid redesign team, the MRT2, that's looking at how do you cut back and, all the ways of cutting back. And that's something that they're doing. They're going forward with that. And it's the federal government is supposed to be sending money also to assist these hospitals. So we're going to see where that is going. Once we have the information about when the conversations are going to be had or the hearings and the forum, we're going to be putting it out, and we ask communities to come forward and to give us information, give us insight. And that's why tomorrow's hearing about the disparities in minority communities is important for people to participate in. There's a sign-up sheet already of all the agencies and organizations that are going to be testifying, but we want to make sure people are hearing this, and if the questions are not being asked or the questions are not being answered, that they send in those questions so that the committee can continue to look at that. because healthcare disparities is really great, in it's blaringly there in our communities.
Now you mentioned a little bit something about cuts. Now we did hear that the governor was cutting something. Is that on Medicaid? Um,
Yes.
was looking to cut. What was that? Like $2 billion,
2
2
billion,
million,
right.
billion.
So the final cuts, we're going to read this week. We'll see what the final cuts will, what the proposals are. There are the conversations that we've been sending saying, you can't cut healthcare, you can't cut education, you can't, you can't social service. We're sending all of these things because the effect of cuts, it hurts minority communities the most. And it's not just minority communities in New York City. We have rural communities upstate that you think we have it's bad in our communities. It's worse up there, and so we have to look at all of those communities, and that's what we're doing. And so we'll see, and we're pushing back on that. For us, it's sending the letters and signing on to things saying, please don't do this, and let's look at this, let's look at that, and that's what we're doing. And we've asked our congressional delegation to assist us also.
So I want to say it again, and I want you to really tell folks how to actually get on this hearing tomorrow, because again, the governor, while folks are looking at he's the greatest thing since sliced pie, the guy is actually looking to cut $2 billion in Medicaid, which would heavily affect, like you said, areas like East New York, Brownsville, rural areas. Medicaid is huge. So I want to really emphasize that for the audience on here today. I need them to kind of tune into what is happening tomorrow. So can you specifically speak about that, how they would get on, and again, the time?
It's at 10 a.m. tomorrow, Monday, and the website is nysenate.gov, and you just click on the link that says the hearing, live hearing. You'll see it right there on the events calendar. It says live hearing on nysenate.gov at 10 a.m. And so you can view it there, because only the panelists who were signed up will be able to be in the room and being interviewed and ask questions. But everyone else is going to be watching it live streamed on the Assembly site and the Senate site. So it's nysenate.gov.
And can they submit questions ahead of time, or?
No, these are agencies. The testimony was by invitation only, and
Right.
to agencies that do these services that they're looking at, and everyone else watches. As I said, if you have a question, is always on that page, or to the committee. You'll see the list of the committee chairs. That if you have a question specific to any of the committees, there's a number of committees listed there. You can send in the question to that committee, and then for them to get back to you in terms of what you're hearing, or in terms of what you did not hear at the hearings.
Okay, thank you, Senator. I want to ask one more question, and then I'm going to wrap it up. And I want to absolutely invite you back, because we talked about a lot of different things, a lot of discussions that you're currently having that's pending, and we want to do like some follow up. So I'd like to have you come back, if that's okay with you, down the line as well. Is that okay?
Sure.
And then great. So what I want to ask is about our seniors, because we love seniors.
That's right.
One, I want to talk about a little bit about the social services that are in place for them currently post-COVID, and I specifically also want to ask you about that tablet rollout, the 10,000 tablets, I believe it was. Can you explain that particular program, how it was supposed to be rolled out, and talk about the incremental pieces with that?
Well, the city is partnered with the agency to do the rollout, and it started with seniors who were living in NYCHA senior facilities. Not a senior living in a NYCHA facility, but a NYCHA senior facility. And that's what they rolled out. On Friday, they said, tomorrow they're going to be sending the number out where any other senior living in NYCHA particularly, who really wants to request one, could submit the information. And we're going to have that information tomorrow to pass out. anybody else looking for a tablet, any other senior looking for a tablet, their relative, or they can call 311 and ask about that. It's for the city, how the city will rule that out, because it's in phases. I know it's, 100,000 tablets or whatever is not enough, because the number of seniors, people have this misconception that seniors are not using technology, but it's no longer so. I can go to places and I walk in and the senior will be like, hey, we're going to go Facebook Live. And I'm like, I don't even go Facebook Live most of the times.
Right.
Now I've started, but seniors are doing that. And so more and more technology that's needed. And it's interesting because an organization had reached out to us last year about doing in their seniors. Some seniors cannot come to the senior centers and they wanted to be able to have them telecommute kind of. So they wanted to set up a system and a pilot program to see how it will work with their seniors. And so we're working with them, getting them some funding. And ironically, it's an organization that's in East New York. So that's where the pilot program is going to start. So when people say, oh, she doesn't do anything in East New York, if you look at it, I do more than anything in East New York. And so sometimes it's one of these things that no matter what you do, it depends on, who's watching and who's saying it. And they'll be like, oh, she doesn't do anything. But a lot of, so we're going to be looking at that, and we were hoping that they can increase the number of tablets that they're giving, and making sure, I spoke with one of the technology companies, the wireless companies, and talking about giving, internet service for free to homes with children and to seniors and all that. How long will that last? That's something that they've extended, and they're looking to work on then how long they'll extend it. We know it's not going to be forever, but we're looking to make sure that even when they're no longer offering free internet service to homeowners, to families with children and seniors, that they'll make sure there's some, it's the cost is not prohibitive to someone receiving technology in the home. Again, we think we're suffering in New York City. I went to we did a hearing up in a rural community in upstate New York. They don't have broadband.
Wow.
They don't. There are many places in the state without broadband. The kids who are going to school, they can't, they're offering to give them technology, but they can't use it because there's no broadband up there. So it's interesting when you see that, but we're looking to make sure that the companies are doing what is right by our communities. We're spending a lot of money purchasing these services. The least they could do is give back to those in need. And so before you go, I just want to mention one other thing. And to the people,
we can't go yet, Senator. I have two more things to discuss. I need you to really quick talk about the census.
That's what I was going to do.
Thank you.
That's what I was going to do.
Census, and I'm gonna make mention of the election that's coming up. Just to also briefly talk about that. We cannot go without dealing with those serious issues.
That's right. That's what exactly I was going to start. I could talk about census. You can talk about other things. Census. Many of you may see that I go out there and I post on Facebook, or I go live and I'm pleading with people. Please, you must complete the census. It's not invasive. It's no one's giving your information away to anyone. The census, you must complete it. Why? Because we need resources. The United States is required to do a population count. So now, how do we allocate funds? How do we do appropriations of representation? New York State is on track to lose representation because of us not submitting our census. When you do not complete the census, the schools that you're asking for to be funded will not be funded. The hospitals that you're asking for to be funded will not be funded. The roads that you're asking to be fixed will not be fixed. The transportation system that we're asking to have reduced fares, we will not be able to do that, and on and on and on and on. We can tell everything. Because funding is allocated based on your population. It's billions of dollars. So if on track, you can go online at census2020.gov, my2020census.gov to complete your application. We are showing that Brooklyn has the lowest response rate to date of the census. The same borough where the last time we lost so much funding because people did not complete the census. If you're really interested in the schools that the kids are attending or the parks that they're playing in, complete the census. No one is sharing your information. They cannot ask you the citizenship question in there. It doesn't matter who's living in your home or temporarily staying in your home. Please complete the census. It is important. We can't stress it enough. We cannot stress it enough. If you just had a baby on the 1st of April, that baby should count. Too often, people complete the census and not list the young children in the homes. The last time I checked, the child is a person, and you need resources for that child. So if you don't count that child, you wouldn't have resources for the next 10 years for those children, that child or children. So complete the census. It is your responsibility to not only to yourself, but to every child, every senior, every person in the community that you do your part. If we do not, I cannot stress it enough. If you do not complete the census, we are going to have a count that's going to show far less of a population than we actually have. And we will receive funding for that percent of the population that was counted. And then it becomes an issue because then we have to stretch that amount of funding to cover everyone. And then what will happen? Some of the things that you want or you need, you will not be able to have it because you did not think it was important enough to complete the census, so we did not receive the funding to help you get those things. So, bottom line is, complete the census.
So just to emphasize,
that's it.
We got word that there were 2 tracts within East New York in particular that were severely suffering with. City seems to be okay, but you've got like from Georgia Avenue, New Lots Avenue, down by Ashford, those areas are severely suffering in terms of not turning in the census form, and we are going to be severely undercounted. We again lost, I think, 2 congressional seats the last time.
And we're on track to lose 1 or 2. It depends on the count.
Lose 1 or 2.
Yep.
We severely undercounted children the last time. They were undercounted population in the last census. And I've explained it to people like this. If my daughter, when she was younger, we had to do a party and we had to RSVP for the party, we're on a budget, and
that's right.
That 15 people RSVP, but yet you have 25 coming. There's another 10 kids that's not going to get party favors and bags, right?
Exactly. Or what you're going to have to do is break up somebody's bag to create another 10 bags.
Let me tell you something.
It's not right. Yeah.
With me, listen, if you didn't RSVP, I'm not going to let somebody else suffer because you have it. So all these other areas are going to get, and then we're not going to have. So
then we walk around and say, well, why is that area getting stuff and we're not? It's because of what we didn't do. That's why that happens.
And you can't blame it on anyone other than yourself.
That's correct.
RSVP by filling out your census forms, so that we can get this money. RSVP for this money. So you can either call the census, you can go online. Which is
my2020census.gov.
I did mine online, and it took me about 7 minutes tops.
Yeah.
It may take you about.
I did mine the same day. I came in the house and I saw the envelope. I went online and did it right away, and then told everybody else.
Senator, I remember you text me and was like, "Did you fill out the census form? You remember that?" And I was like, "No, I'll do it tomorrow." And you were like shaking your head, and I was like, "Let me."
That's what I did.
And I did it right then and there. I actually did it. It took me 7 minutes top. It might take you 10 minutes to do it if you have like a lot of children or family members in the house. Folks who are fearful that they have a relative or somebody staying in their apartment that's not on a lease. If you're an immigrant, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
They cannot penalize you legally. They can't do anything. They just want a count. That's it. They just want a count. Take 7 to 10 minutes just to fill out the form. Trust me, it doesn't take any longer than that. The only thing that will take you a long time, if you call on the phone, you might be put on hold for about a half hour before you get a person.
Yep.
But once you get a person, it takes about 7 to 10 minutes tops. And if you do it online or if you just mailing your form, it's extremely quick. I want to also shout out Anita Marshall. I want to shout out Ethel Cook as well. And just clarity, going back on a question, you can call to folks who don't have their tablets. You can call the senator's office. If it's a school age child, you can call the senator's office to help you navigate through that process, or you can call 718-935-5100.
5100.
Let them know what's going on. It goes directly to the school, and the principals will then take it from there to address that situation. And actually, that information also came the other day to me from Janet Huger. So you can either call the senator's office or call 718-935-5100. I just want to let y'all know that the senator and I, there's an election coming up on June 23rd. Just as important as the census, it's important for y'all to go out and vote in these local elections. It's extremely important. The senator, myself, we're going to have judicial delegates as well as alternate judicial delegates on this year's election. And the senator, do you want to talk a little bit about how the rollout is going for the absentee ballots and stuff?
Well, the absentee ballots are going to be mailed to all registered voters, active voters, and voted people who have not voted in a while. Also, you have to submit, you have to fill it out and send it back for your absentee ballot. What we're asking you, when you do that, complete your absentee ballot. That you're done. If you do not want to complete your absentee ballot, there will be early voting limited sites. And so the information on the limited sites will be coming out shortly. And so you can go and vote there. Or if you don't want to do that and you want to be like, somebody regular saying, I must vote on the actual day, June 23rd, then that will be happening also. Those sites will be rolled out in not too distant future. There is some hold up because whether the presidential primary will happen on that same day. It, as you know, it was taken off the ballot, but now it's back on, but there's still a legal case. And so they're waiting for the outcome of that case so that we know exactly what will be taking place. But what we know for sure is that state and federal and district leader, otherwise known as state committee person, judicial delegates, those are all on the ballot for June 23rd. We encourage you to please participate. It's your right to vote. Just make sure.
So the presidential candidates are going to be listed on June 23rd?
As of right now.
Okay.
Because it was not. The presidential primary was canceled.
Right.
Now it's back on. So, but there's a court case pending the outcome is whether we'll know if it's on or not. So we will, we're hoping to see that. If you have not, you should be receiving your absentee ballot application in the mail this upcoming week. If you're not, otherwise, just go online to the Department of Board of Elections and download that application, and you can fill it out yourself and submit it without having to wait for the form to be mailed to you. If you know that you do it earlier, the better. So as many people as possible, you do it and you get it over with. That's the best thing to do. Just remember though, if you vote absentee ballot, you check off the box that says temporary illness because that's covering COVID. So because as you know, in New York, there must be a reason, and there are specific reasons why you can vote absentee ballot, but it will say temporary illness is the box you will check off if you're voting absentee ballot. So please do that. And we look forward to your participating in the process.
That's important. Checking off temporary illness.
Yep.
Okay. That represents
that covers COVID. Yes.
And just so Senator is going to be on for Senator, I'm going to be on the state committee and judicial delegate.
Okay.
And my expectations that folks support our team, the senator, myself, as well as judicial and alternate judicial delegates. Pick your presidential candidate. And who else is that? Did I cover it all?
Yeah.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries
Congress.
is actually our congressman, but I don't think he has a race.
He doesn't have a primary. Yes.
He doesn't have a primary, so he will not be on the ballot.
Right.
So we are asking for your vote, and this is our platform, so we can say what we want.
That's right. We're not on the Senate place. Yes.
That's right. So, Senator, this was a really great. I had a great time talking to you. There was
Thank you. It was good being here.
I was excited about really dealing with the fact versus fiction, and I look forward to really kind of furthering this discussion. I will be on that thing tomorrow with the hearings tomorrow.
Please do it. Please encourage as many people as possible, because we want to make sure that people, people have questions. It's unprecedented times. You have questions. So the only way you can have an answer is if you ask the question. There's no wrong question. Just ask it. You may be thinking and say, oh, I don't want to ask it, but somebody else may be thinking the same thing and they don't want to ask it. And so neither of you will have an answer, and you walk away saying, nobody helped me. So you have to ask your question. So please do that.
All right. So we thanks again. Remember to fill out your census form. Vote Senator Roxanne Persaud, Nikki Lucas for state assembly as well as judicial delegate this June 23rd. The last day, I think, Senator, to send out requests for the absentee ballots is June 18th.
June 18th. Yes.
It's supposed to be 7 days prior to the actual election date. So June 18th is the last day for you to request, right?
Yeah.
Absentee ballot. Okay. Yep. So thank you, Senator, again. We love you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again probably in a week or two.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, one last thing before we sign off. Okay. While you're wearing your mask on the street and your gloves, when you take it off, please place it in the garbage, not on the street, not in the parking lot, not on the sidewalk. Place it in the garbage. It's for everyone's health. Thank you very much. That's my soapbox for today.
All right.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
You too. All right, folks, that was really actually amazing. A lot of really great information that we were able to cover today. I hope that everyone was sharing. Were y'all sharing and doing your watch parties? It's extremely important because we have a lot of information that's going to come up on the show. You have the opportunity to voice your opinions, ask your questions. As you see, I'm shouting out. I'm reading. How you doing, Damien? Thank you so much for supporting the show and joining and asking questions. It's extremely important. It really is Voices of East New York. And keep sending in your requests for your guests. Thank you, Damien. Making your suggestions about who we should have on the show. And enjoy your day. Be safe out there. Love you guys. Fill out your census form. And we look for your support on June 23rd. Thank you. Love you.